That was the first line I ever said on film that no one will ever see, but I remember. Hi, I'm Leo Suter, and these are my film firsts with BAFTA. I think the first film I can remember seeing would probably be the VHS of Anastasia, the animated musical film. I had an older sister, so she sort of dictated what was watched. I remember my grandmother sitting and grumbling on the corner of the sofa, because she was born in St. Petersburg before the Russian Revolution. So she thought the whole thing was sort of ahistorical nonsense, especially the sidekick Bartok, the singing bat. So she was unimpressed by that, but the songs were good, so we loved it. First film or TV show I was obsessed with would be Hollyoaks, which was on at 6:30. I used to watch it religiously when I got back from school. Omnibus T4 on a Sunday, which you had to catch up with because the other TV show I was obsessed with was Robot Wars on a Friday night. There was something amazing about Craig Charles's commentary, live studio audience, and watching these robot fanatics who'd sort of spent hours creating these amazing machines that then just got like smashed up by the house robots and burnt to a crisp. I loved it. I think the first moment or quote from a movie has to be that bit when Gladiator takes his helmet off, turns around and says, "Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife. And I'll have my vengeance in this life or the next." I mean, yeah, hell of a line, hell of a moment in the movie, and I'll always remember it. I actually don't think it was necessarily a film or TV show that made me really want to be an actor. I think it was probably some amazing teachers that I had growing up who led me down the path and inspired a love of acting and stuff like that. But yeah, I do remember Captain Winters, Damian Lewis in Band of Brothers. I think that was a very, cool's the wrong word, but inspiring show, and looked like it was an amazing performance. And then when I was a bit older, Sherlock, Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, and Andrew Scott as Moriarty. I was old enough at that point to realise that I really liked acting and maybe this was going to be a career path for me. And yeah, that show and those performances in particular were very inspiring. The first thing I acted in, well, like I said, I had these inspiring teachers, one of whom, it was quite sort of History Boys-esque. We had to learn a poem a week, recite it for the class, and he would put on these evenings called informal drama, and you could do adaptations from books, comedy sketches. I did Macbeth. At 13 years old, I did the scene where Macbeth can't get the blood off his hands. So thank you to all the parents who sat through that turgid nonsense. I'm sure it was a long evening. The first film I watched at a young age that I should not have seen, well, the first film that gave me nightmares was actually Sleeping Beauty, so there's no shame on my parents for showing it to me. But Maleficent was terrifying. Yeah, she popped up in my nightmares, and she can harness all the powers of hell. She was truly scary. I think watching it back is just as scary, even more so. She's so cruel and so vindictive. And her cackle, she's got such a distinctive cackle. We're gonna come on to it, but the first job I ever did was Maleficent with Angelina Jolie, who is much kinder, much more gentle in that version than the original one. She didn't give me nightmares. But then those other films that I shouldn't have seen, again, I had an older sister, older brother. So I think I probably saw American Pie, those Austin Powers movies earlier than I should have. And probably like snippets of them. I don't think I really understood or got all the jokes in those films. But I do now, and it was definitely too young and inappropriate. So I think my first audition was, not to keep coming back to something that I wasn't even in the end, but was Maleficent. And I had a place at university where I knew I was going to university, so I really didn't care that much about it and was very chilled about it all, which probably helped. I had that sort of youthful, carefree attitude. Just after that, I did an audition with Gurinder Chadha. She was going to make a new rom-com, kind of in the style of Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging. And she met me and we got on really well. I got the part, and then the film kept getting pushed back, and it never happened. I think important pieces of the Jenga pile were pulled out and the whole thing collapsed. But she then called me 6 years later and said, do you remember me? Do you remember that audition? Do you want to be in a TV show I'm making? We're going to go to India. It was called Beecham House. And I said yes, and it was brilliant. I've actually just finished doing a Christmas movie with Gurinder. And we still remember and laugh about that first audition and how young I was and how different I am now.
You're doing a Christmas film. Do you have a favourite Christmas film?
Ooh, well, Jeb Stewart, who was the writer of Vikings Valhalla, wrote Die Hard. So I think I kind of have to say Die Hard, don't I? The first line I ever said on TV was, "I'm terribly sorry, old chap. Would you mind awfully throwing us that ball back?" Which I said to Jack Whitehall in Bad Education, season 1, BBC 3. But before that, I had filmed Maleficent, where I was a young prince who was hauled into the bedchamber of a sleeping, comatose Princess Aurora. And I claimed to the hapless fairies that she was in love with me, and if I kissed her, she would wake from her deep slumber, which she didn't after my character kissed her. So then I was dragged out by Imelda Staunton, which I thought was going to be Imelda Staunton, but was a chap in a full onesie blue suit, so he couldn't see a lot, and was holding a tennis ball because Imelda Staunton's fairy was entirely made out of computers. And as I was dragged out, I said, "But I promise she loves me." And that was the first line I ever said on film that no one will ever see, but I remember. When I first read the script for Vikings Valhalla, I thought, crumbs, this is going to be a difficult accent. That really made me nervous. So I watched a whole ton of Volvo car adverts, which didn't help. And then as well, to be honest with you, I saw the part of Harold and thought he was sort of Superman, and he did so many cool, outrageous things. And I got a little bit nervous of him and saw the part of Godwin, who is the Saxon political schemist. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll go for Godwin. Much safer, much simpler, easy. And then important people around me said, "What are you doing? Go be Harold, go get Harold." So I flew over to Dublin, met Jeb and the gang, and got Harold. Rest is history. The first day ever on the set of Vikings Valhalla was meant to be, Harold was going to give us a great speech to the Viking army that was all camped in front of him. But there was a storm the day before we were meant to film it, so the ground was a quagmire and the tents had all blown away, were in tatters. So they had to find an interior scene with not many actors that they could shoot quickly without much preparation and set decoration and whatnot. So it was the first love scene between Harold and Freydis. So that was the first day of filming for me and Frida, which was, start as you mean to go on. Start with a bang.